I believe that every single autistic person can achieve a great quality of life. I believe that they can all become confident, but I believe they can all perceive confidence in a different way. There'll be and this is the reason, because lots of autistic individuals like you and I, we can verbally communicate, articulate ourselves, and create, jobs and stuff like that.
Tony Hernandez Pumarejo, writer and author, professional and motivational speaker, TV presenter, life coach, an international ambassador for autism and mental health. He is proud to invite you to his podcast, My Time, with Tony Hernandez Pumarejo.
Hi, and welcome to a new episode of My Time with Tony Hernandez Pumarejo. And this is your host, Tony Hernandez Pumarejo. If you don't know who I am, or this is your first time that you're tuning in to this podcast, My Time with Tony Hernandez Pumarejo, I just wanted to say welcome. A little bit about myself. I'm an autistic self-advocate, but more important, I'm an advocate for people that live autism and their families around the world. I also work in other causes, helping people with other disabilities, especially mental health. I'm also a published author, motivational and professional speaker, and I work in different industries from media to nonprofit organizations throughout the years. And I'm honored and privileged to be able to show this episode of My Time with all of you today. In today's episode, I will have the honor and privilege to interview the man behind the award-winning YouTube channel called the Aspie World, which is one of the top channels for autism and Asperger's around the world. And his name is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is a content creator, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and social advocate with an award-winning YouTube channel dedicated to autism awareness and acceptance, and understanding the Aspie World, which is the name of the channel, with more than 200,000 subscribers. As a person with autism himself, with a diagnosis with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, ADHD, and dyslexia, and Daniel uses his influence to help educate people about autism using his skills of video and social media influence. Today, Daniel is a pioneer for neurodiversity awareness and education in the community, education, and business landscapes. And Daniel currently resides in the UK. So without further ado, I would like to take us to the interview that I did with fellow autistic advocate, Daniel Jones from Aspie World. Daniel, thank you so much for being with me here today in this episode of My Time with Tony Hernandez Pumarejo.
Hey Tony, how's it going, man? Like, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And oh man, you made me sound really cool. I'm really not that cool. I sit on my own all day.
You're the coolest man. I mean, I've watched your video starting, in fact, in 2016. I think that's around the time that you started.
It is, yeah.
You were one of the first. Go ahead. Sorry.
That was before I properly started, dude. Like that's like, I was testing the water, and I wasn't even a full-time creator back then.
Yeah. I think there was like you, and there were two other Asperger. I think it was one Aspie from Australia. But yeah, it was him and you that followed, because I haven't started anything yet. In fact, I don't know if I even was going to do this in terms of video content advocacy. So yeah, that's very cool. And again, it's my honor and privilege to have you. So Daniel, with everything that you've gone through, can you please describe me in just a few words your life, the life of Daniel Jones?
Wow, I mean, it's hard to condense it into a few words. But the life of Daniel Jones has been a crazy one. Being an autistic person who was later diagnosed, so I struggled childhood, struggled with teenage years, and then coming to my own in adulthood, had some difficult times, and then diagnosed with autism. I realized that I wanted to create videos for the internet because there wasn't any. And so since then, my entire life's work has been curated around creating content to help people, and it's been my mission all the way through life. As you know, you have my first book, which was on theology, and my philosophy is that like if I can help as many people as possible constantly, I'm doing a good job. So like that's all my life work is. And so now my life is a crazy mix of flying around the world, doing talks, setting up events, teaching people, coaching people, creating coaching programs, creating courses, making videos for the internet, doing interviews like this one, and just trying to do like the most impactful things I can do to make a change around the world. You know what I mean?
And you have done so. You know, your work,
I
your
hope so.
no, you have. Well, you have more than 200 subscribers on your. I think it's the channel with most subscribers in regards to autism. Is that correct? Or no?
Well, it kind of.
Or
I
one
have
at
two.
one at a time. One at a time.
So I have 250,000 subscribers. I was number one, but there's a guy from Australia who was called Asperger's from the Inside and changed his name to Autism from the Inside. And a nice guy, Paul, his name is. But his channel just superseded mine by I think like 20,000 or something. So he's a little bit ahead of me. But don't worry, not for long. I'm going to reclaim my crown and I'll be back at the top. But I have the most followers combined than any other autism social media influencer. I have 500,000 followers across all my platforms, or more than that, really. You can see it on my media kit.
Oh, definitely, yes. And talk about your story, Daniel. At what age were you diagnosed autistic, or in this case, Asperger?
So as I was officially diagnosed with Asperger's when I was 26 years old as an adult, right?
Mhm.
But I'd been going. My parents obviously knew there was something amiss, and obviously I've been seeing specialists and been in and out of clinics since since I was about I'd say 5, maybe 6 years old, and but that was back in the 80s and the 90s, so it was very difficult for my parents to find anybody. Where we live as well in Wales, it's quite rural, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity for professionals and experts to be around here. So yeah, I was diagnosed later on in life at the age of 26, and it was quite profound as it happened, because I absolutely knew nothing about autism when I was diagnosed, and that was quite like, whoa, it was explosively eye-opening, because I had to like learn all this stuff about the condition that had been thrust upon me since birth. So it was interesting.
Definitely. But when do you remember, as you were growing up, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, how you grew up, and if you can tell us, because you were diagnosed at 26, 27, right? When do you felt there was something different about you as you were growing up as a child all the way to adult?
Yeah, I mean, growing up was extremely interesting, because like I come from a family of 3 kids, so my parents have got 2 other children, and I write about this in my latest book, Autism for Adults. I cover quite a lot of this, but in a nutshell, being the youngest of 3 children, you're kind of not you're kind of like on your own a little bit. You have to kind of like fend for yourself, and it was when I was attending school, and I was, because at home I could be myself. I love electronics, I love robotics, I love computing, I loved all these things, and I could do my own thing and be in my own head and play my video games and whatever. And Lego was like big for me. But then when I started attending school, it was horrible. It was like being thrown into in the middle of the Antarctic, in a freezing cold. Like, oh my goodness, I was completely frozen the whole time. And it was almost like what led me to realize that I was completely different was all the kids in the school felt like they already knew what was going on, right? They'd come in and they'd get their chairs, and I was like, holy smokes, how do they even know this stuff? Like, how do they get this? I'm like completely like out of my depth. I have no idea what to do. Everything needed prompting. And so I was like, okay, well, this isn't for me. And it was just a struggle from then on. Every single day was like, oh my goodness, like I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know these kids. Like, and interacting with children, it was hard, because I didn't have the best I didn't have the best social skills as a kid. I was very quiet, very shy, quite reserved. I wouldn't play outside in the schoolyard. I was inside playing on the computers, and the teachers knew this, and I'd missed a lot of school because of these complete and utter horrible experiences of trying to get to school. And so, that really carried on all the way up until I was diagnosed. You go through your life and you're like, wow, well, there's something seriously amiss with me, and you can't put your finger on it because you don't know what it is. And it's kind of like being all by yourself in a crowded room. There's a million people around you, yet you feel completely isolated and on your own. And I spent most of my childhood kind of isolated. I had friends, like 2 friends or 3 friends. Like I had this guy who lived down the street from me, and he was really interested in electronics as well. So I kind of was able to play with him, but on the same level, we'd make things, we'd make robots, and we'd I'd hurt myself by like cutting things open and trying to electrocute myself and things. And there was another couple of kids who I knew who had like ADHD, and it was cool because I got along with them because we had like, we were interested in similar things, like just extreme crazy stuff. You could let out all that energy, and it was really cool. But as you get older, you drift away from those people, and then you become really isolated and quite alone. And I've done a few videos on feeling lonely because as an autistic individual, from forever, I felt quite alone. Yeah, I've never really felt like I have company.
And I can relate to your story because we have different things in common. First, and in the beginning, I was the third of three children. I was the youngest for a time until my younger brother was born and they took my place away. I had to come into terms with that. In my case, I was diagnosed at age 4. This was the early 90s. Back then, there was not much of information about autism, but I was nonverbal, struggles with social anxiety, struggles in terms of fitting in with this so-called normal world, wondering why the other kids did what they did in school. And because of that, I went through social rejection, being isolation as well, and focusing on my hobbies. That's where my love for hobbies began, like Star Wars, video games, arts. Especially growing up in the island, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and I went through different tough situations, even bullying. Do you went through that as well when you were growing up in school?
Yeah, like because kids can be horrible, right? So, definitely had like experiences where even in high school, like girls would like be very like beat me up and stuff, like because I was very much an introvert, so it was it wasn't good.
No, definitely, but I believe from those experiences, and I was able to have this perspective later on in life. They help us grow. They help us shape us into our purpose. That's the way I see it. Even though,
100%.
Pardon me?
100%, I agree.
Yeah, and because sometimes we wonder if those events never happen in our lives, where would we be? Where would we be today? Would we be completely different? I think things happen for a reason. That's the way I see it in life. And
100%.
yeah, things happen for a purpose. That's the way I always call life with purpose.
Yeah, look, life is happening for you, not to you. Everything is happening for a reason, right? God is the best of planners, and you're here to follow out that plan.
Definitely. And speaking about, in terms of the struggles with social, do you have any struggles with relationships in school, even going to adult?
Yeah, like relationships are really difficult because you have two types of relationships. You have potential romantic relationships, no matter how old you are, and then you have potential friendships or platonic friendships. And friendships was only easy or only achievable if the other person was kind of like dyslexic or ADHD or something. You know what I mean? Like I had to gel with somebody on some kind of level where we could think at the same speed about certain things, but it wouldn't transpose. Like I could hang out with one dude, making robots, but then he'll want to go and play football. So it was kind of like, whoa, like I had to like really distance myself from that kind of thing. So I was like, I don't get sports, I don't do. And then romantic relationships, really interesting. Like I was never really interested in girls or sex or whatever, growing up, because you become, as you become a teenager and you go into all these things and things are changing, and like I was never interested in it. And then like I never had much luck with girls anyway, because we're all kind of red-blooded humans, and we all want to kind of like find somebody and have a partner and do these things. And it was really difficult because the girls, any girls I approached, they didn't really understand me, and it was like, oh, so I just kind of like I blocked that part out of my life. And like I've never been on a date, never been on a date. I've never never took a girl out on a date anywhere, went for a romantic meal anywhere on like a date or something like that. It's really, really interesting. I've never had like Valentine's Day cards. Like I've never had a Valentine's Day card. So stuff like that is really interesting because I see all these people when I'm growing up, doing these things. Like they like a girl, they start talking to a girl, and like they'll take her out and they'll do things. So I used to kind of always be like, wow. And then that's my friend Dan, who I lived around the corner from. So we used to walk to school together. So then I ended up just hanging out with him. And he'd just say like, oh, this, I took this girl out and went to this date or wherever. And I was like, wow, and then what happened? And it was kind of like, that was enough for me because I didn't really understand how I could transpose that to myself. So it was really interesting. And I only really have ever met romantic partners through mutual interest of things that are creative, like creative arts, right? And I'll meet them during, crossing over creative arts or whatever. And that, like, again, if I didn't have that connection, and then it's not easy, maintaining those relationships. I've only had like 3 serious relationships, and maintaining them is I know every relationship is difficult, and anything worth having should be hard work, right? I get that, but I mean, it's sometimes quite intense to live with an autistic person, right? You'll know this from anybody who's lived with you, right? And to really understand those difficulties that they have. And so I think it takes a certain type of person, unless they're neurodiverse themselves, it takes a certain type of neurotypical person to really click with an autistic individual,
No, I can definitely totally relate to that. It's not easy because the way we see it is that our world is so extroverted focused, that
Yes.
for us, not only autistic individual or Asperger, but also individuals of other conditions, neurodiverse or neurodivergent, individuals, we had to like conform to the extroverted way of the world, and it can be very frustrating
and confusing. Like, you have to kind of squash yourself into a social norm, which is completely uncomfortable. It's like putting on somebody else's clothes. You're like, what on earth is going on? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's weird. But I feel like that's where you come into the masking, comes into play, where you have to then pretend to be cool with something, to kind of try to fit in, so you don't look like that, person sticking out in the crowd, because that old Japanese proverb, the nail that sticks out the highest is the first to get hit with the hammer. So you'd want to be the person that's drawing attention to yourself, because it's the last thing you want to do. And so it's this horrible battle, isn't it? And it's but it's a challenge, and it's something that I thank God for every ridiculous thing that's happened to me in my life, because those things make me who I am. And you were talking about this a minute ago, right? It's molded me. It's taught me. It's given me a lesson. It's really shown me what's good, what's bad, what people do. And without those things, I don't think I'd be who I am today and doing the things I am doing. So I'm thankful for the highs and the lows,
And that's very beautiful to hear. Gratitude from those experiences. Life is experiences, ups and downs. It's how we learn from those experiences and what we do each day to the best of our ability to be able to live the best quality of life possible. And definitely, and I know that's part of your story. Eventually, you were able to get married. Is that correct? And
I have a partner. We're not married or anything yet, but we are living together and we have children.
Yes, that you have children, so you become let's say for the purpose husband, and you became a father. How is that process? Knowing that you're different, as autistic or Asperger. How is very important. How has that had an impact on you being a husband and a father, in your life? Because we know that there's different parents that are autistic, and they face their own unique challenges as well. If you can share a little bit of insight, if possible.
Yeah, I was always kind of like, it's hard being a partner of somebody. You always feel like, am I worthy enough of this? Being an autistic person, like, can they handle me? Am I too much? Am I going to create animosity by accident? Are they going to understand me? Can we communicate on a level? Will this last? And people have these doubts anyway. They have these worries and stuff. But as an autistic person, you worry that you're not good enough to fulfill the role of the man of the house. Especially being a guy. You know what I mean? Like the dad, the provider, the dude, and those things kind of really worried me. But then, being a father adds another layer, because not only are you then responsible for somebody else's life, you are also responsible for any potential inherent neurological differences that they inherit from you. So I had these worries, like, are my children going to be, because my life quality is okay now, it's good now, but it wasn't, you know what I mean? And it was difficult, and I have times where I hit severe depression because of how difficult I find life, because of being autistic, right? And so sometimes before having children, I always felt like, do I want to pass that on potentially? Why would I want somebody to feel like that? That's something horrible. But then on the other flip side, it's a gamble. Maybe they wouldn't be like that. You know what I mean? So you have that part of it, and then you also have the part where, okay, I have this person and I have to take care of them. How do I do this? And I tell you what, dude, it was one of the biggest differences in my life. Like people say kids change you, and they do. It does change your lifestyle, but it was more of a, how do I learn to be safe enough and good enough to be a provider and carer of somebody else when I already need care and support for myself, right? I think that was the biggest learning curve. And how I did it was organizing everything. If I organized things, it worked really well. Like I knew that at this time they needed feeding. At this time I check this, and then I'll change their diaper. At this time I know that it's nap time. At this time I know it's nap time, and then everything in the house had a place. Like diapers and wipes in this drawer, toys in this drawer, bottles are there, the food is up there. Like everything was mapped out. And once I'd had a map, once I'd placed everything there was no chaos. I could focus on this thing, and the things that would have taken up focus had already been sorted out. So you could focus on the child, and then the things were sorted out around you. That really did free up all the anxiety around it. And every single component of this, from relationships to parenting, comes down to one single factor. The more confident you are as a human being, the more confident you are as an autistic individual, the easier things become. And so I've literally spent, since 2017, or late 2017, early 2018, I've spent all that time figuring out what is it that makes me able to do the things that I do in life. How am I a successful entrepreneur? I bought my own house. I have a partner. I have children. I have multiple businesses on the go. I delegate with the governments of the world. I've briefed the European Parliament on employability for autism and all these things. I'm a best-selling author in like 3 languages internationally and 2 books out. And then I realized it was because I had mega amounts of confidence. And this confidence came from somewhere, right? And this is one of the reasons why I feel like a lot of people like yourself have followed me over the years, because I have a confident persona or a charismatic character that is confident enough. So people say like, hey, I want to learn how this dude is being that confident, right? Which is interesting because this month I'm releasing a program which has never been done before, I've called it Chaos to Confidence, but it's like a 90-day thing where I'm teaching a 3-step program to how you can be exactly how I am. And it's funny because you see this everywhere, like Elon Musk, right? Same diagnosis of you and I, man. But look at him. He's the richest guy in the world. Building spaceships, sending them to space. Confidence. Greta Thunberg, right? Highly successful, really young girl. Same diagnosis as you and I. How does she do the things she does? Confidence. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Dan Aykroyd, all these people, how do they succeed? Because they are confident. And that's it. So I'm teaching that exact thing right now. So yeah, that is the thing is, can you become confident? And you're asking yourself, can you become confident? Anybody can become confident, but that's the thing that's missing. Once you realize that it's confidence that's lacking in your life as a parent or as a partner, being an autistic person, everything else becomes a breeze.
No, that's very interesting what you said, confidence being the key. And that's one of the challenges that we face in our community. As you know, autism is a broad, spectrum.
Yep.
Sometimes I don't tend to get too much into, I don't know, in terms of the labels, high functioning, moderate, or profound. Do you believe, to my next question, do you believe that every autistic person, not matter the level, not matter the label, can achieve that confidence or can achieve a great quality of life?
I believe that every single autistic person can achieve a great quality of life. I believe that they can all become confident, but I believe they can all perceive confidence in a different way. And this is the reason, because lots of autistic individuals like you and I, we can verbally communicate, articulate ourselves, and create, jobs and stuff like that, and potentially hold down some kind of a lifestyle. That can be 10x and improved, which is exactly what I'm teaching in this program. But you could have somebody who's also profoundly disabled. They could have global learning delay or some kind of other condition along with autism. And you can improve their life with confidence, but their confidence will look different to your confidence. You know what I mean? But it will still greatly improve their life. But yes, so no matter where they are on the spectrum, they can become more confident, and that will increase their quality of life exponentially.
I agree. As long as they're it's about getting the right resources and supports, and the key, confidence in themselves, they can achieve a better life. And I wanted to ask you, as you know, I've been following your work. In fact, you started, expanding in 2016. That's where I started following you. Since then, right now we're in 2023, after, years of being doing this, how has your perspective of autism, or Asperger, and neurodiversity has evolved?
I think like nothing has changed in the way how I see it, and nothing has changed in the way that you perceive it. I think the only difference is the understanding of it, the understanding of the complexities of it become more intricate. Like you're able to deep dive down into subcategories and niches of that specific topic. And what I am seeing is a rise in people seeing these things in themselves. And it's cool because since I started doing advocacy online and doing these YouTube videos, other people started doing it as well. And it's like, whoa, like you got all these people doing this cool stuff. And it's kind of like, it's becoming more popularized, not in a bad way, like the popularity of it in a good way, because popularity creates understanding. Not popular like, oh, it's cool to be autistic. I'm saying like popular in the way that people have heard of it, not like, huh? You know what I mean? And I think that's quite like, when you've seen the impact of the work that you do change the perception of something or the understanding of something, you're like, wow, that's really cool. But there also is a flip side of it. There's also dangerous people who are not diagnosed. They're like either self-diagnosed, and they probably don't have autism. They may have a personality disorder, or they have like some other kind of mental health issue, and they're trying to change the narrative. They kind of they add bizarreness to something that's very clinically textbook. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can be autistic and I've got great social skills and I've got great eye contact, but then you're like, well, what part of the triad of impairment are you suffering with? Why? How does this create autism? And so they don't know. And so they change the term. It's not autistic, it's neurodivergent. And then it's like, you know what I mean? Like
I was going to, you're going to hit and right the point, because I was going to ask you about that in terms of the different debates and issues, impacting our community. First and third language use of autism, the use of therapies. I mean, do you think that all these issues are taken away from what should be the main mission?
100%, 100%. I say this all the time. I released a video on my Instagram about yesterday or the day before. I don't know if you saw it, where I was like going ham talking about people who just say, "Oh, you can't use the term Asperger's." I'm like, how dare you? That's all bullshit. Like, you can't tell somebody not to use a term. Are you ridiculous enough to say that you can? We live in a world where people want to tell us what their preferred pronouns are, right? Which is quite interesting, because pronouns is what you see as an intellectual being. When you see something and you confront it and observe it, you give it a pronoun. Wow, I am looking at a brown horse, or a female cat, or you know what I mean? So when someone says to you, I want you to choose these pronouns, you're like, okay, cool, that's fine, I'll do whatever, because you are who you are, and we accept people as they are, that's cool. But then you have the same type of people saying you can't use the term Asperger's as ableist. I'm like, yeah, but you want, excuse me, you allow people to be who they want to be, right? That really bugs me. And secondly is they're changing things like stimming, for instance, right? Stimming is a self-stimulatory behavior that autistic people do. They'll flap their hands, or they'll do these things. These are involuntary. It'll happen when you're excited, happy, or excited, nervous, right? Because they have the same physical kind of like response in your body. So if you're excited or nervous, you'll do the same thing. You'll stim, right? And you'll see that there's autistic adverts out there be like, I stim dance. It's like, you're not stim dancing, you're just dancing. That's not a stim, because that's voluntary. Stimming is involuntary. They're changing the narrative, dangerously so. So they're going from saying, don't say autistic, say neurodivergent, which opens a whole new kind of worms. Because everybody's neurodivergent, really. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's brain and neurological paths are routed differently. And then they say, oh, stim dancing. I'm not stimming, I'm stim. It's like, dude, but you're not. You're just dancing. And there's nothing wrong with just saying, I want to dance because it makes me release a bit of energy. Like, when I'm too hyped up, I'll jump about. I'll stand up and jump up and down. But it doesn't. That's not related to autism. That's me having too much energy from ADHD, or I've got too much adrenaline in my body because I'm hyped all the time. So there's a lot of language that people are using. You can't, like that one, like you can't, high functioning, low functioning, don't use those terms, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's a minority group of our community. And I say this, those things are not important. If you've got time to worry about those things, then you don't really have proper problems within the autism community, because nomenclature, language, and all that shit doesn't change anything. It just makes you more happy at home because you feel offended. What does change is that we can raise 100 grand to buy non-verbal autistic individuals iPads and load them with software to get them to help them speak, or create scholarships for them to go to university, create support and help to get them into university and get them into jobs, support within the jobs community, going to the parliament like I did and brief them on why there's a gap in autism. You know, I'm going to the UK Parliament. I was invited yesterday by the Speaker of the House of Commons to go to the Disability History Month and brief them on issues surrounding autism. So it's making a change in the right places that's going to actually make a difference. Complaining about what if people say has autism or with autism or have functional, low functioning does nothing, and it's completely fucking useless. So just forget about it. I don't dally in that. It's crap.
1,000% agreed.
Thank
Well
you, man.
said. I mean, I'm with you. The focus should be quality of life. Each autistic person is different through ups and downs, and and I see autism more than just the person with a diagnosis, but also the families, the parents, siblings, caretakers, therapists, professionals, because it's it's a community. Yeah, and I think that if we can go beyond this silly and stupid debates, and my apology for using that, we can grow and evolve more, and I believe that autism we will be in a much better place than where we are today.
Definitely did. And I think, and I think you're right. I have no time to debate if we should be using has with, high functioning, low functioning, stim dancing, neurodivergent. I don't care. I literally don't care. Don't come to me and talk about that because I have no time for it. That doesn't help anybody.
Definitely. And your work, and you being an advocate for this community and also for other people with other conditions as well speaks for itself. And again, I'm very grateful for what you do for our community worldwide. I truly do. And just as we wrap up this this interview, you have written different books. You mentioned that you have a new book, Autism for Adults.
Dude, send me your address. I'll send you a copy. So.
Oh, definitely. I have my own book too. I would like to send you a copy as well.
Sure.
So we'll do a book swap. But there's an interesting book that I recently got, which was your first ever book, which I have it over here.
It's a big one.
Yeah, and the reason I got is because I'm a Star Wars fan. I went to Star Wars conventions. I met the actresses. I even met Carrie Fisher the year before she passed away when they did the Star Wars convention in California. And I wanted to ask you, what motivated to write you this, for you to write this book?
Again, Star Wars was a vice for me growing up. Like, it was the only friend I had for a long time. I'd watched Star Wars before going to school, after going to school, and mixed with being in a house where my dad is a 7th Dan black belt in karate, like taekwondo. He has 7 black belts in karate, so he invented his own style called Yamashima. So I came from a very interesting household full of philosophy and Japanese culture and discipline and martial arts. And then you mix in Star Wars and you see like the relationship between the Jedi Knights, and then you realize that the Jedi's in there, or the Jediism that they're portraying, which is their religious or philosophical belief, has basically, it's like Buddhism, but put into a really cool way. So I was like, hey, and being a lover of Buddhism and spirituality and things like that, I said, how can I introduce more people to being connected to the universe like never before? So I wrote that book all about how Star Wars could be seen, or the parts of Star Wars that are philosophical and religious could be seen in a spiritual way that you could apply to your life. And that's exactly what I did. And it was a masterpiece, really, when it came together, in 2017. And that to me was like, it was such a cool time. And I'm really proud of that book. I actually have, because I'm dyslexic, I had a ghostwriter help me write that book. This one's different though. And I got a video coming out tomorrow on my YouTube channel to tell you exactly how I wrote this book. Like it's crazy. Like, you've never ever seen. I wrote this book in 2 weeks, and you'll never understand how I did it. And until you watch the video, you'll be like, oh my God, how did you do this? It's crazy.
Oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to read first your first book and become the Force, and then later read your book Autism for Adults. I think that it speaks about your philosophy in terms of life, through the ups and downs as you have grown and developed. That has helped, and you want to share these experiences to help people around the world through your story. And again, I'm truly grateful for what you do. And before we wrap up the interview, Dan, what message do you have for our community, for our world, in terms of autism and how to help autistic individuals and their families? around the world? What message do you have?
Sure. So the first thing, if you're looking after an autistic, or you're a family member of, or a caregiver, or somebody in the community who isn't autistic but has an autistic person in their life, the best thing you can do is validate them if they have issues. Don't undermine or belittle their issues, or don't think anything less of their issues. Always take it as a perceived value from that person. When you validate their issue, the autistic person feels heard and feels relatable, feels connected, and feels validated in today's world. So do that, first number one. If you're an autistic person listening to this, let me tell you something. Life, as you know it, as dark as it may be sometimes, is about to get super awesome. And I can help you do that. It's my life's goal to improve the condition and quality of life, urge people towards an existence that is not just existing, thriving, being on the autism spectrum. And it's supercharging you to a level where you could never even begin to think, wow, I could do this, like relationships, money advice, getting a job, making a career. I'm about to just 10x your life. So if you are interested, come to my social media channels, email me, say, I want in, the aspieworld@gmail.com. I message every single person back, as Tony will tell you. And regardless of me having 500,000 followers, I still will message every single person back. Message me, say, dude, I want in, I need this program in my life because I'm about to make it so much better for you.
Definitely. And how they can find your social media and website as well.
Sure, you can just find me any social media channel at the Aspie World. So it's TheAspieWorld. You can also go to the aspieworld.com. And I have a free life hacks book for autism that you can download from autismhacks.net. So you can go there right now, download it for free, and it's a cool little PDF book. So yeah, that's how you find me.
And definitely, and once this episode is published, I will put all your social media links, your website, so that way our listeners and people are watching this interview can go to your website, to your social media, and if they're interested in buying your book, they can find it there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tony.
Well, Daniel, it has been an honor of my life and the privilege of my life to interview you in this episode of My Time with Tony Hernandez Pumarejo. You're always welcome to come back here. I believe we need to do another interview. And thank you again so much for what you do for the autism and autistic community in your home, UK, and around the world. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, dude. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, what a great interview that we had with Mr. Daniel Jones. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with everybody that you know. Hopefully this can be a great resource if you're an autistic person or you're a parent of a loved one with autism. And please spread the word about this interview that we did today. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of My Time with Tony Hernandez Pumarejo. See you.
Well, this is the end of another episode of My Time with Tony Hernandez Pumarejo. Tony hopes you liked it. If you'd like to learn more about the work Tony does, subscribe to him on his social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, which is now X, and his LinkedIn page. You can also follow Tony on his website at tonyhernandezpumarejo.com. Also, if you are interested in getting a copy of his book, An Autism Unscripted Life, you can purchase it on Amazon or any book-selling platform. You can also obtain a copy through his website. So, until the next time you meet, thank you and have a wonderful day. Blessings.